BetOnline is the world's most trusted source for sports betting and your number one spot for everything NFL football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Do you think you know your stuff? I bet you do. Get in on BetOnline's $200,000 Pick 5 contest. All you got to do, pick 5 games against the spread to win your chance at many different prizes and that $200,000 prize. BetOnline is the most trusted source and platform for sports betting and your number one spot for everything football. Plus, when the game's over, head on over to BetOnline for that online casino, blackjack, poker, and over 150 different slots. Head to the website today, get in on the action, bet online where the game starts. Welcome to the Mikey Likes You podcast, everyone. I am the Mikey who likes you, or you who is like, joined as always by Giorgio, the powerful Greek Puzo.
Sup?
And that is Greek for dick, right?
I hope so.
Puzo.
I haven't looked it up.
I am fluent in like 15 languages. Go ahead and just play a podcast if you could.
No,
I am fluent in 15 languages when it comes to pussy and dick. That's it, though.
Really?
I spent every summer of my life, well, not of my life. I spent 12 years from my formative years, from like grammar school to high school. All of my summers I spent in Italy. I was very lucky. I'm not Italian, but my best friend and my best friend's dad, was my dad's best friend. He has passed. My godfather were Italian nationals. They lived in America. The kids had dual citizenship, but he had his home and grew up in Italy. And they said, pay for the flight. You're always welcome. And so I would most of the time without my parents, I would go with my friend Marco and his family, and I would go stay in Italy for the summer. And I did all that every year, growing in the time and era in my life when my brain was very absorbent and I was very good at kind of manipulating my brain to learn new things. I can say like 4 words in Italian, and it's all, I know dick is cazzo. I know how to say suck my dick. Ciccio mi cazzo. Vaffanculo, like fuck you. And that's pretty much it. And I'm really competent with ordering Italian food.
Yeah, it's like, where's the wine?
That's about it. Yeah. Like the real deep, authentic Italian food I'm very familiar with, but there's probably 4 or 5 languages I could muster up the dick and vagina for. It really says something about me. And my wife, let me vent a little bit, personal stuff. My wife gets mad at me a lot. Now, that's not the end of that statement.
Yeah.
Okay. My wife gets mad at me frequently about what she perceives to be me putting up a block to things that I'm insecure about and then acting childish as a way of like protecting myself. And although I'm insecure in many ways and I do act out in many ways, like I would imagine any adult does nowadays, she's never right. If I am in an adult situation and I make a dick joke or say something purposefully inappropriate or lowbrow, I'm not a scumbag. I'm not in church going, fuck off, everyone. I'm talking about if I'm at a dinner with other adults and I make a fart joke, something silly. I always do it because I genuinely enjoy it. I feel, and there's such a overwhelming sense of enjoyment for kind of ruffling people's feathers in that way, in an unthreatening way. I'm not going to say something racist or offensive. I'm going to say something that is a bit off color because I know there's a certain group of people around me that are very uncomfortable by it. And I'm very excited, and it's very genuine, it's very sincere. And I don't know, like I said, this is a personal thing. This doesn't matter much to anyone. But I do, when I am called on my bullshit, I like to think that I'm pretty good at taking it. If I'm being dishonest or if I'm misguiding people because I'm scared of something, because I'm overcompensating, I think I'm pretty good about taking that criticism. I don't like when when people are claiming I'm doing something And that's not like my motives are always I like that. I'd be on TV and I would say something and it would bother me so much when someone would then say, "That's racist that you said that." I go, "No. It had nothing to do with whose race it was. It could have been any. I said it because there's half the people watching are going to go, oh my God, I can't believe that guy just said that." It has no motivation by hurting anybody's feelings. It's more of I perceive everyone around me is acting so pretentious and pretending in so many ways. I have to do something to point that out.
You're cutting the tension.
Sometimes I'm creating more. In fairness, a lot of times I'm
only to hold a mirror up to society.
Exactly. And maybe I'm not that good at it, but that is always my motive. I remember one particular instance where I got a lot of heat from people who don't really know me, because this lady, and she called herself like Miss Ali Bumbagage. Her name was like Patty, and she was from Hawthorne. But now she makes a living going on TV shows and shit, talking about like pro black rights, not, and she was doing like the dashiki and stuff. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. Because like we'd get off the air and she'd be like, "Hey, what's up? Nice to meet you." And then we're on the air and she's like, "My people needs to understand the power of the," and I was like, what the fuck is this African shit? We were just talking. You're just a black lady. Like, why the fuck is this pro-African shit? So I was already kind of rubbed the wrong way by her because I saw her as like an exploited person and stuff. And I'm super, I don't think I need to prove myself to anybody. I'm very sensitive to injustice and the suffering of people, be it race or gender, sexual proclivity, whatnot. But she starts going on this long-winded thing about Trayvon Martin, right? And it's not even having anything to do with the actual evidence of the issue. And I'm by no means like a Zimmerman apologist. Like, you didn't need to, he's a fucking teenage kid who didn't have a gun. You really need to fucking go around asking him what the deal was. You want to be cop pussy? Like, how about you just actually talk to him, see how that goes, or call the cops, you fucking asshole. And you ended up having to shoot the kid. Because you're a chicken hawk, right? So there's no misguided there. But then, so we do this discussion about it. And then right after that, there's the story of, I don't know if you remember, this is a decade ago or something. Justin Bieber, who was very young at the time, got arrested for egging someone's house in Florida. Okay. So he's in Florida in jail, and there's like closed camera. What is it called? Closed circuit camera from inside the jail where he's wearing his hoodie, walking around the cell, and people, they're like, well, let's comment on this now. It's one of those CNN like panel shows, you have to comment on it. And it's coming on the heels of me getting really frustrated with this lady trying to clearly exploit a very serious situation with Trayvon Martin and doing it for her own kind of prominence to promote herself. So we're commenting on the Justin Bieber thing, and I said, one more thing we should point out: you can't be a teenager walking around Florida with a hoodie on because George Zimmerman will shoot you in the face. And Dr. Drew literally goes, "Oh no, Mike, you can't." And I look, I said that for one reason, because I turned and I looked at her, and she does the like, "How dare you? Oh my God, what an offense. You're trivializing that." And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm just pointing out how we talked about this guy for 15 minutes, and all it had to do with was like the history of oppression. It wasn't with the fact that George Zimmerman, and I was totally right. Turns out he got in a fucking gunfight like 6 months later in traffic. He's a maniac, chicken hawk wannabe pussy who's overcompensating carrying around guns, which is a problem in America. A bunch of guys who are actually pussies, and they realize they can feel like not a pussy because they can go buy a gun. And that was had very little to do with oppression and black rights and all that. And I was very upset at her. So that was my only point in making that. I don't really want to ever besmirch poor Trayvon Martin. I don't know the kid. And I feel bad that a young man is dead. But I was saying that to fuck with her. Okay. So I'm just venting. Like I said, this has nothing to do with anything other than me getting a chance to get it off my chest. Because I get you're better than that thing. And I go, like, well, what does that mean? Because I genuinely wanted to make that fart joke right there. I genuinely wanted to, these people who are talking about how the Lord will save you. I was like, dude, we're going to a UT football game. And I was saying how I don't really like chicken. I like red meat. I'm a red meat guy. And it's like, well, you need to get right with the Lord. I was like, oh, really? Okay, here we go. I'm going to light a fart on fire. This is how much I care about you people right now and what you have to say.
Wait, does Jesus prefer chicken?
I don't know.
Here.
Like,
Chick-fil-A has gone way too far.
I remember that was a made up.
Yeah.
But how about this? I was dropping off Magnolia at school. This is two years ago here in Texas. One of the parents is there. They're nice people. I enjoy their presence. They're good people. But they're very, very religious, right? And I'm not anti-religion. But these were like, and it's the same thing with, this is what I hate, okay? This is, I'll just sum it up. Let me distill it down. I'm a big meat eater. I don't think that's surprising to anyone who's ever casually listened to the show. But I also, like, have deep respect for you. If you choose to be vegan because of moral reasons, good. Fuck yeah. That's pretty sweet. Let me know how I can help. If you want to come over to the house, I'll make you some mushroom tacos. I'll actually geek out on going online trying to find like a delicious. That's awesome. What I don't want is for you to make your identity about being vegan and then go around talking with stuff that has nothing to do with veganism and you have to interject with everything, letting people know so that you can feel some sense of superiority. I think that Judaism, Islam, Christianity, I think it's fantastic. I was not raised. My parents were really had Catholicism imposed on them, so they let me slide on that. I got a very casual relationship with Catholicism, and I'm Mexican Irish. Like I came out of the womb as an alcoholic and a Catholic. I was like ready to go, and a boxer. I should have been a boxer, but. If you find the Lord or Allah, whoever, if some level of religion, formal religion, gives you peace and makes you a better person, I think that's amazing. I don't need you to go around talking about it all the time so that you can give yourself a sense of superiority. And when people do that, I get prickly and I start to put up my own defenses, and my own defenses are usually flatulence or over-sexualized sophomoric bullshit. That's all there is to it. Because I don't even want to point out this like one in particular conversation I had with this person where we were talking about our both of us were very unhappy in actually separate directions. And this guy was very respectful of that. We were both kind of unhappy with COVID protocols because, like I said, this was 2 years ago, and people's behavior around COVID stuff. And then it boiled down to, it's like, well, that's because you don't have Jesus in your life, Mike. And I was like, really? Grown man with a family and a whole lot. And I try to be good to society. I think people, by and large, enjoy my presence as well. I need the way I'll figure out my misunderstanding of COVID mandates is through Jesus Christ. Okay, now I put my defenses up and I started acting like an asshole. That's all. All right, so I actually had a pretty big guest on the show today. Did research the whole thing. He or she is known for things outside of the entertainment industry, but executive produced a movie that will be releasing next week. And it's actually quite good. I cried like a baby watching it. It was fucking dark. It's really dark. But it's very good, and it's very meaningful. So I was excited to talk to him or her. They called me on my way here to Giorgio's studio saying, we're very sorry, but Megyn Kelly can take us this morning. And we just booked it, and I hope you understand. I was like, absolutely understand. Thank you for being honest. Not be like, oh, well, he or she had to sleep in, or they're traveling. They're like, the publicist is like, we got to call last minute. Megyn Kelly could fit us in, and that's a big thing. Show. And I go, way bigger than me. She's hotter than me.
Barely.
Go have at it. Thank you, Giorgio. Go have at it, and I hope it but they gave me dates and we're trying to reschedule. So I said, hey, how about you do this? Go ahead and give me some questions for a Q&A like 5 minutes ago. So we'll see what we have mustered up here and we will get right into it. I have good hair. Thank you. Lunchbox. Hi. I have a very big sweet tooth. What would you recommend as a healthier alternative to satisfy those cravings besides fruit? It's a pretty big one to just say besides. I don't know. You know what? I'm going to be very honest with you. I'm not a good guy to give you advice on that because I don't. And I think this is very common. A very, very common difference between men and women. I don't want to speak for all guys, but when I'm really ratcheting down my diet, it's fried chicken and pizza and bread and butter and kind of savory things that I have a really hard time avoiding. I could care less about cake I'm not saying I don't like cake and donuts. I do. I like cake and donuts and pie. It's delicious, but it's not a struggle for me to avoid those things. It is absolutely a struggle if someone brought over like some local Texas barbecue and mashed potatoes and stuff, and I was really trying to watch my diet. I'd be like, oh wow, that looks really good. I do think women, on the other hand, my wife and I do not struggle with tempting the other because she, even when she's and my wife's one of those people like fucking hate you. I hate you because she has an amazing set of genetics for physique. She's very tall, long legs, and she was one of those kids that like ate like crazy, never had to worry. Her and her brother, right? But my wife, of course, she's 47 years old and she's an actor, so her appearance is very important. So there's times and places where she has to get a little bit more strict with her diet, and she's always like, "Oh God, look at those pastries." You know, we drive by or we'll walk by something. I'm like, it looks good. I'm trying to watch my dad. I walk by the pizza parlor. You smell that like Italian, the smell of, you're like, oh, I get the thing. And I think that's very, very common difference between men and women. It really depends. This is Carolyn OXOXO. It really depends. Carrie Lynn. Sorry, not Carolyn. Carrie Lynn. Because if there's a serious eating related mental health issue, I don't even know if I feel appropriate giving you any advice. Whereas if you're just someone who's like, there's 5 to 10 pounds here and there that you really want to take care of, and it's hard for you to lay off the pie and the cake. My take has always been, well, why avoid it at all? My analogy is, people always ask me, how do I do this? How do I do that with diet? I go, well, I don't look at it that way. I don't want to give you tips and tricks, as opposed to, I'd rather you get a better relationship with those things. Meaning, instead of becoming a different type of employee to food, I'd rather you become boss of the food and food becomes your employee. Really switching that to the point that you could have a slice of cake once a week and not have to finish the cake. I'm not going to tell you some like alternative sweetener made keto based alternative dessert that you can have instead of cake. I go like, how about this? How about we just get more in touch with what makes it impossible for you to not have a regular amount of said thing that you have a problem with, right? Because especially and I think this is a lot of what separates a paycheck physique versus just wanting to look better. When I was competitive in bodybuilding and things like that, and when I was just transitioning from radio into getting the idea of getting on TV, I became so neurotic about every single calorie and everything that goes in your body that I had to moment to moment regulate what I was doing so that I could have uniform behavior, absolute tips and tricks and gap fillers and everything, because I was just kind of in a negative mental health space because I was so I was so overly taxed and so overly connected to the outcome. I was so over the top, disproportionately, aggressively connected with how my body looked that my well-being went out the door. And I think that if you're going to do it for a paycheck, okay, your entire livelihood has to do, fine. Any professional bodybuilder or fitness model that's listening to this, sometimes there's going to be stuff where you just have to sacrifice almost everything, because in the end, that's what really makes you want to wake up in the morning. So it balances out. If you're just someone who wants to lose weight and keep it off, I don't think you need to compromise your mental health even a small bit. You have to get in touch with what about your mental health? What is this byproduct of your mental health that is making it so that you can't control that? In the same way that I let off by saying, unless you have a very serious issue, there's eating disorders that are very serious, just as, if not more serious than drug addiction. And if I'm talking to someone with that affliction, please understand, I'm not someone who is qualified to do that. And I think I've absolved myself maybe of any wrongdoing by opening up with that. I can give you some advice to be like, cheer up, lady. You can do this, but you need to talk to a mental health professional. That's how serious it is. Just in the same way that if someone came up to Giorgio and asked, like, what should I do about my drug addiction? I don't think Giorgio would be like, well, let me tell you exactly. This is what I do. I've had to go through it. No, but if someone come in and talk to me about drug addiction, I would say this is what has helped me in the long run, because I don't know. I don't know what it's like to be completely consumed with eating. I understand what it is like to be consumed with the outcome. Okay. And I don't think that that's positive. I don't think you should ever be that way unless someone's going to pay you money to do it. Okay. If you're going to be the next Aquaman and you got to go on some strict diet, or you're going to be an IFBB pro, fine. That's the deal. Okay. But if you just want to look better and you want to figure out how to get better control of sweets, I'm not going to tell you some sucralose alternative or some tip. I think you should really work hard to get in touch with why you have such a problem with sweets. Because I would never tell an alcoholic, dude, you know they make non-alcoholic beer, right? Just go get that. You'll be fine. No, it's a much more vast problem. It's a much more nuanced problem. And as a grown adult, if everything's okay, then you should have no problem having that piece of pie without eating the entire pie. Having that donut without eating a box of donuts. And that's honestly, that's the best advice I can give you, is like, sure, dates. I think dates and bananas and fruit, as you said, besides fruit. And I don't know why you say besides fruit as if like that's not an option. But there are foods, natural foods, that are actually going to help your citrus fruits in particular come to mind. They're going to help you metabolically. They're going to help you when it comes to keeping weight off. Even though they're sugar, they help you metabolically. Apples have inulin in them as a special type of fiber and help you really slow down digestion. And they've shown, one very interesting study I saw the other day was, dates are extremely high, incredibly simple sugar. It's like really like candy. Dates are. But they did a real study on humans, double blind and stuff, where they gave them dates and it had almost no impact except for a positive one on their blood sugar. And the commensurate type of sugar, simple sugar from something like candy, just would skyrocket your blood sugar response. And so things like fruit have to be taken seriously when it comes to healthy alternatives to things that are sweet. But above and beyond that, one of the biggest problems overall with eating and physical fitness is that people are constantly looking for pharmaceutical-like solutions to much deeper problems. What do I mean by that? What do I do about my sweet tooth addiction? What can I eat instead of? What can I do about my snacking problem? I have a snacking problem. I can't stop. I just can't sit down. And I go, well, none of this is the problem. The problem is you eat too much. Why are you eating too much when you are very well aware that you need a certain level of calorie intake and you daily exceed it grossly, right? Just like I would never, no one, a couple beers, dude. You want to work hard. You have a cocktail, you get home. You're a grown adult. Yeah. What is it about me? I cannot stop. It's fucking poison to me. Is it because alcohol has a problem? Or is it because I have a problem? It's because I have a problem. I am someone who absolutely can regulate to the fucking gram of protein, to the actual calorie, exactly how much I eat in a day, and be content with it. I cannot have a fucking shot. In 1 week, I'll be fucked. And I've tried. I've gone, in the past, I'd gone a year or two, so over 6-8 months here and there. I go, and I'd be like, I can have a beer. Sure. That night I did. I had a beer. I remember this one, I went to sushi with my friends and I had some sake. I had like a couple shots of sake. Like a week later, I was in a fucking alley buying crack. Drunk off my ass. Is that because alcohol is bad? No, it's because I have a fucking issue, and I don't. It's probably way outside my pay grade what that exact issue is. But it was much more important for me to get in touch with why I can't control my drinking than it was for me to just figure out a way to have a couple drinks like a normal person. To figure out tips and tricks, what I could do. Make enough money to get a designated driver. Only drink beer instead of hard liquor because I drink too fast. Switch to light beer. All of this shit, none of that's a good idea for me. I had a serious emotional, spiritual, mental problem. And if you cannot consciously say, like, I can't even have this because I'll be fucked. I can't stop eating it. I think it's way more important to and I'm not saying that's easy. I just think that should always be people's main purpose and goal, is that, in my opinion, and this is another adage I like to throw my little slogans around, right? Okay. Lose weight, get stronger. These little things. What you do 100% of the time at 75% is way better than what you do 75% of the time at 100%. And here's another one I will say, is that when it comes to improving your health, mental health is always number one. Mental health is always number one. Let me give you a clear-cut example of that. Ephedra caffeine combination, ephedrine caffeine aspirin, used to be the ECA stack, ephedra caffeine aspirin, but they've kind of shown that the effects of aspirin are there, but it's not as necessary. 200 milligrams caffeine and 20 milligrams of ephedrine 2 or 3 times a day. It works. Over the counter, legal, whole thing. They used to be able to sell it at like GNC and stuff, but now they can't because of certain regulations. But you can still go buy Bronchade or any of those kind of over-the-counter asthma bronchodilators with ephedrine in it, and it has a very regulated amount. Get that. Get a 200 milligram caffeine pill. Like a no dose or something like that. Really, really effective. Hunger blunting. Increased metabolic rate, thermic effect. You're burning more calories just existing. Crazy amounts of energy. There's also like some metabolic effects that when it comes to regulation of the food that you do end up eating. It's a really, really effective fat loss supplement, but it makes you edgy. And it definitely, if you take it anytime after, say, 4 p.m. for normal people who have normal schedules, it's really going to affect your sleep. And in the long run, it's going to affect as profoundly as Percocet? No, by no stretch. But it's going to negatively impact your mental health. You're going to get edgier. You're going to feel a little bit more fucking impatient with things. You'll become more rash, more aggressive. There are other stimulant-based fat loss products that are actually a little bit worse. But if you wanted something that would absolutely be effective and is legal and you could take it, that works. I don't think it's worth it, because in the end, unless you're getting a paycheck for it, I don't think I would ever recommend that for anyone, because it will compromise your mental health to a pretty extreme degree in the long run. Because like I said, you're not sleeping. You're not going to be eating enough nutrients of the good stuff. Your hunger will get really unregulated. Then when you try to get off of it, then there's going to be a real fallout, had serious headaches and moodiness and lack of energy. So if we're taking priority number one is always mental health, that can't be on the table. If priority number one is always on, is the thing, priority number one is mental health, reductionist diets, they're not for me. They're not for me, and I would never recommend them. I can't recommend something that the keto diet, when it comes to pure weight loss, keto is a winner. It absolutely works. It gets you to eat less food. There's nothing magic about it. Ketone bodies are not doing it. Just fuck all that. The reality is like there's only so much fucking butter and bacon you can eat. You get so full, and it lacks the tantalization to the palate that bread and potato chips do. So you just eat less, way less. And that makes you lose weight long term, and it's very effective. There's a couple downsides physically, but they're not enough that I would ever say don't do keto if you want to do keto. But the reality is like going through life moment to moment, day to day, constantly not being able to have any carbs is going to take its toll on your mental health. A big one? No. But it's not worth it to me. Anything that compromises you being as happy and well adjusted as you possibly can is not worth it, because my take is anything you do diet and training wise should make your life better. Anytime it stops doing that, anytime it stops detracting from your quality of life, it's not worth it. Lifting weights should make you more vibrant, have more energy, make you feel better about the way you look, and it should give you more confidence that you can do difficult things in all arenas outside of the gym. Dieting should make your skin and hair look better, make you feel better about yourself, make you lose a little weight so that you don't get as sore of knees and ankles, and your partner finds you sexier and you feel better about yourself. You're a little bit more mentally sharp because there's not that kind of brain fog that comes with the crazy erratic blood sugar. As soon as your diet is so restrictive that now you're tired and edgy, it's not worth it. As soon as your diet is so restrictive and so aggressive that your hair starts falling out, that women start losing their periods, I can go down. Now we've crossed over into I don't support this, because all of this shit I talk about, lifestyle stuff, training and eating, it's all with the goal of making your quality of life higher. As soon as something compromises your quality of life, it's a no-go. And having to live your life constantly with sugar-free gum and whackity smackety doos that you go down to GNC and buy that are these like kind of potato chips, but they're made with different gluten-free flours and keto. Like, no, this is fucking bullshit. No, let's get at the center of why it is that as you, as clearly a very smart and very fucking well-adjusted adult human being, can't control this. Okay? That's my best advice. And I know it was a little long-winded, but it matters to me, because I could very easily just say, oh, well, just do this. Just drink more coffee and get artificial sweeteners and put it in there. It'll be sweet, and the coffee will make you less hungry. I go, yeah, but what are we doing? How about you shouldn't have that? We didn't have any of those products till about on a global, like real, you could go down to the store and get them, really like the early mid 80s were the first sign of these Crystal Lights and Diet Cokes. And before that, this shit didn't exist. Body weight regulation was regulating how much of whatever it was that you were eating, just eating less. None of this stuff exists. Do you have any tips do you have any ways I can obviate this process? I have to get in touch with why. And there was 4% of American population was overweight. And those people were like, shit, I don't know. I think I have an issue. Because every dude that went to work that was overweight, he was alone in that. And you were like, fuck, what do I do? What do I do about that? It's not about Diet Coke, and it's not about gluten-free this and that. It was like, okay, well, let me get in touch with what's going down. Okay? And the reason I like to call it pharmaceutical solutions is because that's what happened with pharmaceuticals. I broke my fingers playing football when I was a sophomore in high school. Now, because this was 1994, when I say broke my finger, I didn't break all 10. I broke these 2 fingers. Went to the doctor. Finished playing football, by the way. But I was just clearly, I was in pain. I was like, something's really wrong. And I went to the doctor, went to the emergency room. My mom, dad took me, and they go, probably in a lot of pain. This has to be set. And they kind of set it. They're like, go get some aspirin if you don't like Tylenol or Advil, if it doesn't sit with you. Because, I mean, it's going to be painful, but we're not going to give you morphine. It's crazy. You're a fucking 15, 16-year-old kid. We're not going to give you some more. Now there's a pharmaceutical solution for very manageable levels of pain. And what is one of the biggest fucking problems in our country is people dying of painkillers. Morphine was invented for dudes in World War I getting shot in the stomach. Not for your slipped disc in 2010 that you're still taking opiates for. That you know what I'm saying? Like, we can't constantly look for these like quick fix solutions. It has to be just like, wow, how am I going to deal with this? Because this is about this. Everything. All of it is about behaviors. You could sit there and go, what's the most optimum training program to do this? What's the best fucking diet for, I'm just getting into gym. How about this? Don't stop going. Pay attention when you're in there. Work really hard. Because the more time and effort you put into, and the more fucking brain power you waste studying the detailed, most optimum way to do it, is time taken away from like, I'm not that good. I'm a white belt now, but I've only been doing it 2 months. I think I'd be a blue belt next year. And if I keep doing it, man, I'm going to be a black belt one day. May not be 5 years, may not be 10 years, but one of these days. If you're constantly going over like these tutorials on how to do every little detailed thing, you burn yourself out. And if you're constantly looking at like, what are the tips and tricks to get past this feeling of suffering to achieve the thing that I want, it just draws you farther away from getting past that suffering. Not to get too heady, but I had this very serious conversation with this person. I don't want to, it would be wildly inappropriate to even, I will say this. It was a young person. It was a teenager. Okay. And he or she was talking to me about drugs and alcohol. And he or she has a serious issue. I was very, very connected with this person. And I with every ounce of my fucking being, wanted to help them. And he or she said, I just feel like the pain of what he or she was describing is so overwhelming, and these drugs and booze, it helps me deal with it. And I yelled at him. I said, no, it doesn't. I said, it helps you for a moment feel like they're not there. Because if your wife's leaving you, or if your dad makes fun of you for being fat, or if fucking the millions of things that we all deal with, right? On some level, some people have to deal with sexual abuse. Some people have to deal with, the chick in the quad at high school made fun of you for your fucking shoes. But we all understand what it's like to feel deep emotional pain. And the only reason I could say this with such certainty is because this is fucking 15 years of my life of just clawing away, throwing myself slowly away, under this impression that I was helping myself deal with things. And the reality is like, no, all I was doing was getting these little tips and tricks to pretend like they didn't exist. And it used to last all night. And now it lasts 15 minutes. And soon it'll last 15 seconds. But it's all it is. It's fucking little bits of paradise where I don't feel like these problems are there. It does not help me cope with them. In fact, it just prevents me from doing so. Now, am I saying having a problem with sweets is the same as having a very considerable drug or alcohol addiction? No, I am not. But they live under the same umbrella.
The hit is close.
The hit, and people's connection to them is very similar.
Mm-hmm. The knowing you shouldn't, but you keep going anyway. That's
right.
The thing that always hits me with food addiction specifically. And I have to like not have it in the house, or the entire cake is gone, or the entire box of ice cream is gone. And it's, also know. And I think there's a little bit of like shame that's involved with both as well. Cause like you feel like you shouldn't, but then it's a risk reward, a pull in both directions at the same time. It makes you feel better. And then eventually, like you were saying, it's 15 seconds, but eventually it's none. It's just
the shame's immediate.
Yeah.
The shame is immediate. That is one of the things that never made any sense to me, is that, sure, when I was a kid, when I was college age, 18, I couldn't even recognize. My left brain didn't play a role in addiction. I couldn't even recognize that it had any pull or it was just fun. Acting like a punk, you know? But what never computed to me was towards the end, for a considerable amount of time, and I don't think non-addicts get this, I'd be actively driving to get drugs going, I really don't want to do this. And I can't stop myself.
The other part of your brain has already made up the decision to go get the drugs. Like, there's no arguing with that side of it.
No, I literally couldn't stop there was no intellectual ability to say, but you can't, you're going to die. You can't do this. You can't do this.
Taking the cash advance on the credit card.
My whole life's falling apart. Yeah.
Raising the limit on the credit card to get the cash advance, to go do the things, to keep the normality of the addiction continuing.
Giving a guy, give me the money, I'll go pick it up because this guy doesn't want to meet. He's kind of fucking he's hardcore. You're not allowed, but I'll go pick it up for you. And I'm handing this guy the money. I was like, I'm never gonna see this money or the drugs ever again. But I had to. I just like, well, there's a chance. And I would be actively giving a fucking scumbag $200 that I didn't have because he's gonna go get me a half ounce. You know, like I'm watching it happen, and my brain is saying, "This is
I'm getting robbed.
Goodbye money, goodbye money." And this guy's fucking hardcore too, so I'm not gonna tell him shit. I'm just going, well, that's a gangster just took my money, and I still couldn't stop myself, right? And you think that's helping? You think that's helping you cope with whatever issues are underlying? Of course not. Of course not, man. Do you think this one's unbelievably common? You're in a marriage, right? Let's say you're a straight guy. You're married to a lady. You get no sex. You think Pornhub 3-4 times a day just to get by is helping? Is that helping you cope? Or is that just digging your hole deeper? Because for 2 minutes, you get the sense that that's not an issue. It's not helping you deal with it. It just lets you pretend. It's really effective at letting you pretend that that problem isn't there for this much time. Sorry to get so deep on it. You've been, it's good transition. Shoulders beard. Armenian fella. You've been very open about your addiction issues prior to your 20 plus years of sobriety. My questions are, 1, how hard was it to maintain sobriety in the party environment, St. Patrick's Day, weenie roast, etc., during your K-Rock days? And 2, do you still ever feel temptation to go back? And if so, how intense are those urges? Well, answer the first question is 0. No, 0. I was never, I was very lucky to have those opportunities in my life, but being new into sobriety and then going backstage at concerts and going to bars and I'd be at work where it was, most people are not in a work environment where it's encouraged for people to get drunk. I was commonly in that position. And that was, I can't ever think of it being challenging. It's never, like, exposure or being around drugs and alcohol never has been more of a temptation than just indifferent. I was also a very isolated user. I went to bars and clubs and to public places of drinking because, for 2 reasons. 1, girls. 2, there was environments where I could leave my house where it at least wasn't frowned upon for me to drink and use. So I would tolerate that. But no matter where I was, unless there was some serious potential for girls, every time I was anywhere drinking or using, I just wished I was alone. It was always the fight to get alone. I was a very isolated drunk and user. So the only thing that ever was hard was when people were fucking stupid shitheads from being drunk and using. I remember doing interviews at a concert once, like a festival, and I was working and I was going around with like a mic and camera, and these drunk dudes were so annoying that made it hard for me, not because of drugs and alcohol, because I was a sober person trying to deal with drug users and drunks. That got hard. But never like did it encourage me to fall off the wagon. How do I deal with temptations that I may have now? I don't have very strong urges. I have a lot of strong urges when I have emotional trouble to find some way to alleviate those emotional problems. But they're not very focused or particular to drugs and alcohol. Does that make any sense? Like, I feel an animal desire to make pain go away or to make the world go away sometimes. But I don't actively I feel an urge to go get beer or go use drugs. And I think that enough time has passed that I've kind of gotten, at least my left brain has gotten past that. I don't think my body or my soul ever will, but I can kind of go, well, you really don't want beer. You really don't want crack. You don't. So I could at least kind of let my brain, how I was alluding to, my brain couldn't do that 20-something years ago. I literally couldn't tell myself I don't want to do this. It couldn't compute. Now it all it does is tell myself that. But I also think that it got so dark, and I had those handful of experiences of small fleeting amounts of sobriety, and how rapidly once I started drinking and using again, things got almost, if not as bad, darker. That I kind of know with all certainty, me having a drink or me taking snorting a line or something, it's essentially putting a gun in my mouth and pulling a trigger. Like, I'd so be dead soon. And I can't do that. I have a family. I have a life. And that shit gets hard, but I still want it. You know? Like, there's...
Familiarity towards... Like, you said something that stuck with me is you would watch people be shitheads.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a freeness to that sometimes that I not only if I romanticize, but like remember and have a familiarity with of like, oh, when you're that fucked up, you're to the wind. There's a I don't know if like it's just me like kind of missing that is the wrong word, but there's like a familiarity that's comforting.
Well, that's a good point. Much in the same way that I was in Mexico New Year's Eve 2019 going into 2020. It's very easy to remember because I remember my buddy and my wife and I all like we were making our New Year's resolutions for 2020, and little did we know like 3 months later COVID was coming and none of that happened. But that's how I remember so clearly. But I was in Mexico. We spent a week leading up to New Year's Eve with another family who we like very much, and they have kids, and it was like a real fun festive trip. But this guy, college age American kid, and we weren't in Cabo where there was a lot of like partying Americans. It's a pretty kind of remote spot. We went out into town one night, and there was this drunk college age American kid. And I'm walking with the other male, the father of the other family, and the kids and the wives were away. And we were just walking, and this guy comes up to us, this drunkard, and he starts acting like an asshole. And my friend, he's a good guy, but he's also not a drug addict. He's not an alcoholic. Was getting really outwardly annoyed by this guy. Like, I was scared he was going to beat the shit out of him. And I think, like most people, this guy was a fucking annoying drunk. And my friend, who's not suffering with the disease, he was very upset at this guy. And I felt so bad for him. He was, like, don't get me wrong. He wasn't, when I say he was annoying and drunk, he wasn't, like, putting his hands on us or anything. It wasn't that. He was just making a fool of himself. Trying to, like, get us, like, party with him. And he was absolutely annoying, but he wasn't like a threatening guy. He didn't like smack my friend's wife's ass or something where I'd be like, whoa, what are we fucking doing? He was annoying. And this guy was getting annoyed, as one would. And all I had inside was like, look at this poor guy. Man, I feel for this kid.
Was he alone?
I think he had a group with him, but he was alone when he was talking to us, yes. And I really did. I looked in his eye. I think I told this story on the podcast. I came here to this studio 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I was at a stoplight. And this guy comes up with Austin has a very serious homeless issue, Austin, Texas. And I live outside the Austin area, but I'm close enough. I come into the Austin where Giorgio's place is to A, take my daughter to school, and B, to come to work and stuff. And Austin proper has a very serious and growing homeless issue. It's very cute. It's like Austin traffic, though, to guys like me who lived in Venice. I was like, oh, your homeless problem's cute. It's cute. Yeah, because I'm used to just like wool, you know, Berkeley, Venice. That's a whole different.
You need a shield.
Downtown LA. Downtown LA, over by what they call Skid Row. Even as a guy who's from LA, born and raised, you see you see it. It looks like The Walking Dead. You can't believe we allow this on our earth. I can't believe it or exists on planet Earth, and that it's just part of the way it is.
Close to 100,000 strong now.
And you can't fucking wrap your head around it. Like, anyway, I'm getting off topic. Yeah. But Austin does. It has a very rapidly growing, and when I say it's cute, I was being kind of a jerk. It's a very serious issue. Homelessness is a fucking serious issue. And this guy comes up, a stoplight. There's a lot of panhandlers, right? Because of the homeless issue. And he comes up, and he has a cup. He's like, "Hey, man, you got any money, man?" His fucking teeth gone. And he's like 30. He looks 65. His eyes, he couldn't focus on me because his eyeballs were banking around when I was trying. And I just I felt so bad for that guy because I was like, oh, I know exactly how you feel. And it's like, I was so fucking tenuously close to being you. And that's a feeling that you get. I think it's hard to create that feeling if you can't understand that. Much like if we watched I watched a documentary about Gary Goodrich, the former UFC fighter, right? And he has very serious brain damage from fighting, CTE induced dementia, and like really serious. And it's fucking so sad, so sad. I think just having baseline human empathy, saw it and was like, oh, this poor guy. What another fighter would see in that, if they, if Rampage, watched it with me, his level of connection to that would be so much more overwhelmingly, uncontrollably high. And that's the same way I feel around addicts, and they're so, for me, like that, because of that connection, I don't have these like tangible urges of like, well, just give it a shot, tie one on, This is the way I feel.
That fear that you talk about, or like that connected with me quite a bit, of like seeing people in those positions and be like, I was so close to that, like an inch away. It kind of almost feels like standing on a cliff and looking down, or like being lost at sea, or like a near death experience where like it's a core memory.
Yes.
And it is, and it kind of happens when you're alone. It happened to me when I was alone, and like the real acceptance of those thoughts.
Yes.
And then it's just like, oh, well, that spidey sense tingles all the time now when I'm in those situations of being like, oh, remember, don't forget.
Do you like take into consider, like really listen to what Giorgio's saying? And this is why I want to make a point about it, because I don't think we're technically alone anymore. Certainly if you're a teenager or younger, you very much don't really have that feeling of being alone with your thoughts. You know why? I'm making a living now, whether I like it or not. I create shit on the internet. I'm not trying to say, but take that into consideration, because all of these landmark moments in our lives, you can go back and you're like, well, I was existing as A, and it wasn't until I had awareness of it that I was able to work to change into B. None of that happens while you're allowing your brain to be preoccupied with TikTok, YouTube video, seminar on fill in the blank. And not to get too heady and not to get too overly dramatic. But if in 2002 I had YouTube, I really don't know if I would have got clean.
The glorification of it's what scares me. It's like you are connected. You're not alone. There are people there who are experiencing what you're experiencing. But now that it's so open that it's moderately glorified, or you're almost like, it's like a branch of the victimhood mentality, I think. But Yeah, I would have got caught up in it. Be like, oh, like this is okay. I'm supposed to be sad, or it's cool that I'm sad, or it's cool that I have these problems and I find a community, so I'm going to keep having these problems.
Yeah, I mean, the old Swartzen joke about how like chat, and this is 10, 15 years old, so he said chat rooms, so I mean, imagine if it was Reddit or anything. Like, how did you tell someone? How did you find out there was other dudes that wanted to shit on girls in 1955? If you're like, oh, your thing was shitting on people or scat play, right? And you're living in Wisconsin in 1955, like, were you on a date and you're like, pass the salt, by the way, I could have shit on you? And there's a funny take, but the reality was like, all of this stuff just gets normalized because you're finding the millions of other people that'll be into that shit. And that's not necessarily a good thing, because when you're by yourself, you get that harsh realization. I've told this story a million times. I mean, I had everyone I respected or cared about, some people who didn't even know me, tell me, you're going to die. You're going to die. You are a drug addict. You're an alcoholic. You need help. You're so young. And none of that fucking hit. I was in a motel in the middle of a day by myself with nothing, staring at a TV aimlessly while I was trying to make a pipe out of tinfoil, and all of a sudden I was hit by myself, overwhelmed with this feeling of like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm 21 years old. If I had any way to get in touch with someone else who would have helped me continue that behavior, it wouldn't have happened. I was overwhelmed because all I had was my fucking conscience. And looking at myself, I saw there was an end at the end of the mirror in this fucking shitty motel. And at the end of the bed, there was a mirror. And I looked at myself in my underwear at 11 o'clock on a weekday as a fully healthy grown man, a young man, my whole life ahead of me. And without any control over, I walked over to the side and grabbed a phone book and started looking for inpatient facilities. And that was it.
The MacGyvering of the pipe is a very
relatable
to everyone, and that is one of those times, especially when you mess up on the second or the third one, and you're running out of materials from a gas station or an empty bottle or whatever light bulb you can find, and you're like,
Apple.
Yeah, you've screwed it up 3 times, and now you're like, and you have that self-awareness. I'm still trying to make a pipe.
Yes.
Maybe I should fucking stop.
And by the way, when you out there who just smoke weed or tobacco, you're going like, what? You got to understand. When you're talking about rock or meth, a tinfoil pipe kind of kicks ass because it keeps it hot like that. That tin, it absorbs the heat. I understand. It'd be gross to smoke some weed in like a tin. I get it. I understand what you're thinking. I'm talking stimulants. Rocks, it's awesome in that. Anyway, that's my serious talk about that. Here's another thing. And Giorgio brought up another good point. The glorification of it. It's one thing when you get the comfort of knowing that there's other people who feel the way you do. But the glorification of it is where I draw the fucking line. And Punk Rock MBA, shout out, Finn McKenty, did a video a couple weeks ago about Blink-182's music and how people were saying, yeah, but that's not real punk. There's all these guys. That's not real. They're fucking sellouts. Blah, blah, blah. And it got me thinking, right? That wasn't the totality of it, but it got me thinking about that world of that's not legit. That's not hard. That's not real. That's not gangster. That's not hardcore. That's not real. Fill in the blank. And it bothers me so fucking much. The whole, but that's not legitimate because it's not dangerous. It's not negative. It's not threatening. I was 19, and this guy I used to get coke from Not the guy I used to get meth from. The guy I used to get meth from at that time was a neo-Nazi, and I had to drive out to the high desert with my friends. And that group of people was fucking anyway. But I used to get coke from this gangster, and he was a gangster, real. This is the 99 2000. There was no fucking Post Malone back then. There was no fucking Lil Xan or whatever. All these. He had tattoos on his neck in 1999, 2000. That was a different ball game. Face tattoos, neck tattoos. He's a cholo. He was hard as fuck. I did not. I really watched my P's and Q's around that dude. But after a while, me and a couple of my buddies, when we would buy drugs from him, he kind of befriended. He got cool with us. At least he trusted us enough, like he would hang out with us and stuff. And I remember I was watching TV with him, late night TV. We were sitting on a couch, kind of like this, and he was sitting next to me. And I had rocks like this. I was talking to him. And he turned and he looked at me. And this wasn't like a sensitive guy. He was a legit gangster. He has killed human beings. He spent a considerable amount of time in jail. He's probably about my age now. He was 40, probably between 35 and 45. But I was 20, 19, something like that. And he turned and he looked at me. He says, "What the fuck are you doing? Talking this shit." I'm like, "What do you mean? What do you want to do that for?" I was like, I don't understand, dude. He's like, "You have parents in like you came from a nice neighborhood. You went to school and shit. You have all of that." You know, because I was talking about silly gangster shit. Guns and drugs and this and that. And he said that, why would you do that? You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. You think that's hardcore? He's saying, "I'm a gangster. I didn't have a choice. My dad was a gangster. My dad sold drugs. My dad I never saw my dad again after the time I was like 12 years old. Mom was a drug addict. I grew up in blah, blah, blah neighborhood. You grew up in this suburb. You have everything. You had your whole. Why would you choose to fucking engage in that? Like it's cool." He's like, "I do this because this is what I am. This is who I have no fucking choice. I can't go down to the Gap and ask for a job." And I was like dead fucking silent. He's like, you think you put on the costume of hardcore. He's like, being a gang. That's tough. That's real. That's legit. He was like, I would kill to have what you have for going with. And he was a fucking gangster and ended up being a real scumbag. He wasn't like a heart of gold gangster. He was a real hardened fucking murderer. And I hear these like trap rappers and these lil this and lil that and these new up and coming fucking bands and some influencers talking about Xanny bars and lines, and that's cool because Blink-182 and Justin Bieber, that's not real music. That's not real culture. You're fucking crazy. You know how many fucking people I buried in my life? You know how many people I was close to that are dead? You know how many times I've told this story before? The one guy in recovery that I looked up to, that was my idol. The guy I modeled the way that I was going to change my whole life in an attempt to make myself a better person was DJ AM. He was who I looked at and said, that's how I want to do it. And he's fucking dead because of drugs. That's so cool. Oh, no, but this punk band isn't hardcore. They're not real. They don't struggle. They're not gutter. These guys aren't real gangsters. They just fucking front. They just play blah, blah. It's all the image. I want to be real. I want to be hardcore. I want to be threatening. I want to be dangerous. Shut the fuck up. You're going to fucking die. You're going to fucking die. Isn't that rad? Because I don't have shit in life. I'm not an expert on anything. I'm not particularly successful. So I can't sit out there and go, let me take this cultural linchpin that we call the internet and tell you how to do it. And tell you, one thing I can tell you is like, shut the fuck up. If you're a young person right now idolizing and aggrandizing this idea of living this lifestyle, like Tentacion or Tony Montana or whoever it is in your fucking crazy imagination, in your beautiful, albeit immature, sense of imagination of what it means to be cool, I'll walk you to the fucking graveyard and show you what it really is. I'll take you there. Because that's all I have. That's all I fucking have to give you. Because you think it's cool. You think it's appealing.
It's a whole lot of nothing.
It's shit. All that shit. The way that you, especially young men, the way that you identify with how you're going to be cool is think of all these different threatening, dangerous, cool, edgy things that you're going to do. And it's all bullshit. It's all dollar store costume bullshit. It's all meaningless. Take the time to find out who you are. You're so obsessive about finding something else online, on TV, in your favorite fucking music about what it's going to take, that thing that's going to help you bypass that journey to being cool. You know, and moments ago I said, it's all meaningless, it's all worthless. No, that's not true. It'll fucking kill you. And it turns you into a degenerate scumbag. So that's your parting gift. That on your way to death, you become a fucking loser scumbag. And I want to reach out and strangle all the fucking idiots that are out there promoting it like it's something, it's a commodity. And that's that. That's a good spot to end. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Thank you again to Giorgio. Really wouldn't have a podcast if it wasn't for Giorgio. So
thank you for coming hanging out.
Thank you for all you guys and gals who download and listen and tell a friend, support it. And in this crazy mixed up world that makes you think that nobody cares, remember I do. Be good.